Have you ever felt out of control around sugar? Then this episode is for you. You'll discover how I find the balance between enjoying sugar and mostly getting the quantity right so that it doesn't have a negative impact on my health, and also how I approach my overindulgences so that they don't lead to failure. So, welcome to Joyful Eating, episode 176. So, today we're talking about I overate white chocolate mud cake frosting and I'm not out of control. An episode devoted to feeling in control around sugar. But the best, before we get to today's episode, I thought I better have a sweet theme to my best bite. So, best bite I've had recently, actually last weekend, made some spiced pumpkin bread. So pumpkin from the farmer's market that I had roasted. My Irishman had roasted it in the wood fired oven, and then we had some extra. So I pureed that up, and I just used my stupidly easy banana bread recipe, which is so super super easy, and but substituted pumpkin for the cooked pumpkin for the mashed bananas, and served it, like warmed it up, had it with vanilla ice cream, and it was like that pumpkin spice with ice cream and the cake, like just it was so good, so good. Anyway, I digress. So our plan for today is I'm going to share the story behind this episode, of course, and then I'm going to share a deep and dirty secret from my past of my white chocolate mud cake frosting incident. And so you'll find all about that, outing myself for my bad behavior. And then but then we're going to talk about how to stop feeling out of control around sugar and the steps that I applied to that incident so that I didn't feel out of control and so that I was able to learn from it and move on. And then I've got a bonus tip for you as well. So basically, the story behind this episode is I've recently within the Naturally Healthy Club. So Naturally Healthy Club is my 6-month coaching group where I help people change their relationship with food and their body so that they're losing weight with ease and eating well, and they're finding this balance between they're not restricting, but they're also not in like, oh, free for all, I'm just going to eat whatever. Like they're being intentional and finding this balance. And so within that group, there are some people that identify as sweet tooths or that identify as feeling out of control around sugar. So I've actually created a subgroup within the group for people in the Naturally Healthy Club who do identify with the sugar thing. I have another one for the alcohol people. um, yeah, so that we can just have some lessons focused around helping them be more intentional around sugar. Anyway, so we had our first group session for that this week. It's actually called the Secret Sugar Society. So fun. We had a heap of fun with it. Anyway, that got me thinking about just this feeling of out of control. And like when I was preparing for that class, I was thinking about my journey with sugar, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun to do like a podcast episode about this. So here we are. So in terms of my mud cake incident, this actually happened back in February. So it was Finbar's birthday, my youngest, who's turning 8, and I've got a project where I'm baking everything out. I've got this beautiful big baking book called First Cream the Butter and Sugar by, I'm blanking on her name now, but it's like an Australian author. She was in MasterChef and, oh gosh, what is her name? Anyway, it's First Cream the Butter and Sugar, and it's like big, it's thick, it's like a compendium of baking, and so she's got some amazing things in there. So my every birthday, I'm like, choose something from this book, but not something I've cooked before. So anyway, so Finbar had chosen the white chocolate mud cake which is like layer cake with like this white chocolate ganache frosting on the outside. So first of all, it was the night before his birthday, so I made the cake, and for some reason I'm like either the recipe was wrong or I used the small cake tins that were too small, but the mixture like was cooking up and bubbling over the side and made this big mess in my oven. So that was my first, and I was like, that was like, so I was pulling it out, and then I was like, just I didn't even think about it. Just like these crusty bits of like golden sugary cake, like white chocolatey cake. Like I was just like they went straight in my mouth, and I was like, and so because that's what you do, of course, with sugar. And I guess I was like feeling a bit frustrated as well at the time because like the cake there was bits burning on the bottom and the cake wasn't going to look that good and rah. But anyway, so the cake went straight in my mouth, and then so I had a bit, but then I was like, hang on, what am I doing here? Like, do I really want this? Like, it was after dinner. I was like, this is like, I'm going to have the cake tomorrow. It'll be so much better if I wait. And so I coached myself in that moment, and I was able to choose again. Like, do I really want this? No. And so I was able to choose again. Anyway, so next day, Simba's birthday, and then, just before we like to have the cake, birthday cake, as dessert to have with dinner. And so we'd been out all day. I can't remember what we did, but anyway, we'd been out, and then we got home, and then I was like, so it was my job to make it was time to make the frosting for the cake, and so and it was like it was summer, so it's February in Australia, and it was really hot, and so I'd like, just getting the frosting to be the right temperature was really tricky because, I was first of all, I was short on time, which is never a good thing when you're baking, like, to feel time pressure, and then, like, because it was so hot, like, it wasn't cooling down, so it wasn't solidifying enough. So with a ganache frosting, like, it's technically quite tricky because you need to get the temperature right because you want it to be like, liquid enough so that you can spread it on the cake, but not too solid that it's but not too liquid that's gonna run off. So there's this, like, small window, and I was, like, totally like, I was going from, like, putting it like, ice water in the sink to putting it outside, like, and trying to get the right temperature. Anyway, so I just gave up and just went, "I'll just frost it as is," with this, like, kind of slightly too hard frosting, and I was just like, it was I'm making a dog's breakfast out of it. It was like it was the worst thing. I just as I was getting more and more frustrated, like that like I didn't even there was no conscious thought, like the frosting just started going into my mouth. And I was just like, eating frosting, still trying to spread it on the cake, eating more frosting, still trying to spread it on the cake, and like just in this pool of frustration. And then I like came to and realized what I was doing. And so of course, changed my mind, chose again in that moment to stop eating first of all, stop eating frosting. This isn't helping. Like, and then I decided that this cake, I'm just going to stop expecting it to be perfect and it's going to be fine as it is. The boys loved it. Of course, it tasted delicious. Uh, and it was fine. Like we moved on. But the reason I wanted to share this story with you, so first of all, I did decide then, after because I'd had so much frosting and I didn't feel like eating any more sweet stuff, so I actually decided I'm just going to have tea instead of having birthday cake with the boys. Like, they can have cake. I'm done with cake. I've had enough. So that was like that felt really good. Like, and I was doing it from a place, not from a place of shame and guilt and, oh, I can't be trusted. It was like, genuinely, I got no space for any more cake. It was like it was the loving. It wasn't a restrictive, mean thing to do to myself or punishing myself. It was like this loving gesture of like, we don't need any more cake. We would love a cup of tea right now. We don't want cake. So that was the first thing I did that made me feel a sense of control. So a few minutes before, I'd been like, in the cake, in the frosting, but then, and so if you had have asked me then, I probably would have felt out of control. But then when I was able to make that choice afterwards of like, you know what, I don't need any cake now. Might have some tomorrow, but right now I don't. Like, that felt really good, and that helped me feel that sense of control. So so I guess that's the story, and I'll come back to this mud cake example as we go through, now that I'm going to talk about how to stop feeling out of control. So first of all, what we want to do is set your in and the more like this is really like game changing, is to actually set your intention before you start baking. So normally I would do that like before I would start, and I did before I started baking the cake. But then I had that incident, but I don't think I did set an intention before I started making the frosting because we'd kind of been out and I was running around and I hadn't really thought it through. So that's one thing that I would definitely do differently. Next time is just pour, like, either earlier in the day when I'm thinking through the day, just think like, how do I want this frosting situation to go? And actually get a bit of a plan, like mental plan for it in my mind. And even now I would think through, okay, so what happens if I'm starting to feel stressed and it's not turning out how I want? How am I going to navigate that? Do I want to start licking the icing and overeating it, or do I want to react in a different way? So that's one lesson, is like, always making sure I set intentions. And so this applies to when I'm baking, but it also applies to when I'm having any actions with sugar. I want to use my, like, because we've got different parts of our brain, I want to use the best, like the prefrontal cortex, the part of my brain that can understand about future consequences. We want to use that for making choices around sugar. So that's really the first thing to feeling in control, is to like setting those intentions. And then the second part is and what I did do really well was like having self-compassion in the moment. And this is comes from years of me now, having that experience of mostly setting intentions and sticking to them. On the odd time that I do have an incident like this where I'm not sticking to my, or didn't set an intention, or I'm not sticking to it, then I don't automatically go into the shame and guilt and negative thoughts, beating myself up spiral. I go straight to self-compassion. So what that looks like, it's just like the thoughts that you're thinking about the situation and about yourself. So in any moment, we can choose thoughts that are kind and loving, or we can choose thoughts that are mean and beating ourselves up. And they, like, as you may have experienced, the mean beating yourself up thoughts, they don't really work. Like, it doesn't really change your behavior. So, and it just feels really bad in the moment. Like, so when we do something that doesn't feel great, and then we pile on these negative thoughts about can't be trusted. I'm so out of control. Like, I'm just, I'm useless, whatever your go-to thoughts are about it. Like, then you get this extra layer of negativity on top of like the already bad feelings from going, like, eating too much, in this case, white chocolate frosting. So what the self-compassion is so powerful because it just removes that layer, which is, like a layer of cake. It removes that layer of the shame and guilt, and then you just have the original to deal with. So self-compassion, so helpful in so many situations, but particularly in a situation like when we're dealing with a highly addictive substance like sugar. It just helps it to feel more in control because we're in control of our response to the situation. So that's the second step. And then the third step that I did do as well is to choose again in the moment. And just when you do realize, oh, hang on, into this bag of cookies is almost finished, or like, oh, hang on, I can see the bottom of the tub of ice cream here. Scoop, scoop. Um, like, any moment, like, you don't have to wait till Monday. You don't have to wait till tomorrow. You can choose again in that moment to like, you might want to intentionally choose to finish it off, or you can also choose again to stop where you are. And I find that the question that's really helpful in those moments is asking, like, do I want this? And actually taking that pause and checking in with, like, yeah, do I really want this? And oftentimes, like, when we do that, like, the answer will actually be no. Like, too many cookies, like, done with cookies. Like, no, like, but it's just, but if we don't take that pause and check in with ourselves and check in with what we really want, then we can just be eating automatically. And so we actually don't stop until something forces us to stop, like we've run out of food to eat. There's nothing left in the house. So yeah, this third part, like just pausing and choosing again in any moment, that is really powerful because it helps you get that feeling of control back, because you're then you're making a conscious choice, you're making an intentional choice. And so it's not all, I'm just this random eating machine on autopilot. You bring some sense of, oh, hang on, I'm actually the captain of the ship here. I am actually have agency over what I'm eating. Great. I'm making a choice. So those, and the thing is that the more you practice this, and the more you are kind to yourself when it does happen, and that you get into the habit of setting intentions, like, and the more you have that experience of, oh yeah, like, I can actually choose again in any moment, the more you practice this, the easier it will become. It's just, think of it like a skill, like a muscle that you're building. And then the more sense of control you feel, because really control isn't black and white. It isn't like complete, it isn't like all or nothing. Like, it's not like we zero control, 100% control. Like, there's shades of gray in between. And so what we want to be doing is just getting more and more intentionality, bringing more and more intentionality and control into our relationships with sugar, and not expecting it to be 100% perfect. Like, there is still plenty of times where I go into have white chocolate frosting incidents, and it's like, it's no big deal because it's not happening often enough for it to have a negative impact on my health. Like, like, my blood sugar's fine, my weight's fine, and a bit of sugar here and there isn't going to kill me. So, like, we don't need it to be perfect. I think that's the other reminder that I want to have. And also, I think with sugar, like, and in speaking about the shame and the guilt, I think the thing to be mindful of is there's like there's nothing wrong with you if you overeat sugar. Like sugar is a highly addictive substance that stimulates dopamine in our brains. Like that. So like it's all humans that eat sugar at some point overeat it. Like I don't know anyone who'll be like, oh no, I only ever eat a perfect amount of sugar. Like everyone has the oh too much cake or oh too many cookies times or too much ice cream. Like we all do it because this is how we're wired. Like it's our reward center in our brain. So there's nothing wrong with you if you overindulge in sugar, you know, and just because you're doing it more often than you would like doesn't mean that you can't change it. So that is my message to you today. And then my bonus tip for you is like there's nothing wrong with engineering your environment for success. So a lot of people that come into the Naturally Healthy Club, they feel like, oh, well, I should be able to have all these things in the house. I shouldn't have to like, ban them from the house. And yeah, it is possible. Like if you want to keep, cookies and ice cream in the house, amazing. Like that's definitely possible for you. However, you don't have to and in some ways, like if you're wanting to take baby steps on changing your relationship with sugar, it actually might be smarter at first to only buy or bring into the house what you are going to eat, knowing that over time you'll get better. But as a first baby step, like just having some portion control is actually a smart thing. Like it's not cheating, and it's not being restrictive. It's like setting yourself up for success. So yeah, or you might like to have another rule like thing you might like to do is like I'm just going to have sugar when I go out. Like so if I'm going out to a restaurant or I'm going to my favorite ice cream shop or my bakery, I'll have sugar then, but I'm not going to actually have sugar at home. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like if that's how like that feels good to you, then absolutely go for that. But of course, if you live in a house where other people are bringing sugar in and you need to be intentionally like that, that's fine too. But it's like just working with what you can, I think, and making like life easy for yourself when you can. Okay. So your next step is next time you overindulge, just do yourself a favor and well, actually, next time you're thinking about cooking with sugar or interacting with sugar, do yourself a favor and set an intention. And then when you do overindulge, because it will happen, what we I really want you to just focus on that self-compassion piece. So just remember, oh yeah, Jules said to be kind to myself. Like, of course, I just overate all this ice cream. Like ice cream's like sugar is a highly addictive substance. Of course I did. And just speak kindly to yourself and then choose again. Okay, so yeah, and my invitation to you today is like if you're enjoying the podcast, please tell one of your sugar loving friends, share this episode with them and let them know that they're not alone and that like that it is possible for them to change their relationship with sugar too. And this is a little framework to help get them started to feeling more in control. As Audrey Hepburn says, nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible. Okay, have a fantastic week and I'll catch you next week.